Commons and syntax is a general concept for every programming languages, and they are the basic concept that we need to know before writing any code in a programming language. So commons is those line of codes inside our Python files, that Python interpreter will skip them or ignore them during creating a runnable version of our code and when it tries to run our code. And we can use the command to explain the code, to increase the readability of the code, and also sometimes is really useful for debugging. For example, if you write a code and if there is a problem in some part of your code that you want to fix, sometimes you can convert the code to the command and then run the rest and check where is the problem is coming from. Or maybe you want to check different part of the code. And also it's a really good tools to set some personal reminder inside the code, for example, as a to-do list for future revision or version. We have two type of comments, so single line comments, which start with a hash sign, and the rest will be considered as a comment, and this part will be skipped by the Python interpreter. And multi-line comments, we have a different type of multi-line. You can use the triple quote, triple single quote, or triple double quote. And in this case, Python interpreter consider these lines as a string literal, and it will skip those. I will show you in the code right now how to create single line or multi-line comments. From the other side, every language has some sort of syntax that we need to know, and those syntax is a group of rules that we need to consider when we are trying to develop a program and write a program in this programming language. Python syntax is very simple, and it's try to increase the readability, and as we mentioned, is intuitive and straightforward. So these are some sample rules. For example, indentation. Indentation, so it's one of the main differences between the Python and the other programming languages. So instead of using the brackets to create the code blocks in the Python, we are using the indentation, and I will show you how to consider these indentation, otherwise it will show you an error. For example, for loops or conditional statement or function, we need to have a different indentation to somehow create a block of code. And statement and line ending in the Python is also different. For example, in the programming languages such as Java, C++, you need to put a semicolon at the end of each line, and semicolon is a separator for different statement. But in the Python, the line break is separate statement from each other, so you don't need to put the semicolon at the end of the line. So let's look at an example. Tip calculator. Create a program that help user calculate the total bill amount, including a specific tip percentage. So when we are going to a restaurant, for example, at the end, when we try to pay the bill cost, so we will pay a percentage of our bill as a tip. So ask the user to input the bill amount and the tip percentage, then calculate and display the total amount including the tip. Great, let's go to the Visual Studio Code and write this program. Okay, I will create another file, commands, example.py. Great. So we want to pay the bill. Great. So we need a variable to store the amount of the bill. Bill amount. So we can ask the user to enter the bill amount. If you remember, so we have the input and we can show a prompt, enter the bill amount. And then because it's a input function will return a string, we need to convert that to float value, and we will store that one in the bill amount. And then we can ask about the percentage. So in fact, the percentage tip percentage. So we can see, we can say and ask the user to enter the tip percentage and then convert that percent to the float. Or we can keep that one as an integer as well, because if users say 15% or 10% or 20%, so let's to keep it as an int. And now the total amount, will be equal to the amount of the bill plus the percentage that we want to pay for the bill, which is the bill amount times the tip percent divided by 100, and this is the amount that we will pay as a tip. Why? Because this is the percent. So this percent, for example, if user enter 10, so we will divide 10 by 100 to get the percentage, and then multiply that one by the bill amount to get the tip amount. And then we will add that one on top of the bill amount to get the total amount. So now we can say print, and we can say the total amount is total amount. So if we save that and let to clean the screen, we can say Python comments. So at the moment I just wrote the code. If you run that one, it will ask about the bill amount. Let's say we spend £65 and we want to pay 10% for tip. So the total will be £71.5. So in fact, this is the total amount. But if you look at this code, because we didn't add any description or comment, if I return to this code, and this is a very simple program, but in a real world, we will write codes, or we will create files with thousands sometimes, or 100 or 1,000 or 100,000 of codes. So we need to put and add some comment to increase the readability, or maybe to remind ourselves something in the future. So for example, I can add some comment here, and I can say bill amount is the cost of the food, for example, and we can add another, for example, comment. This is a single line comment. You can put the single line comment in a separate, or you can add, for example, at the end of a line. So for example, tip, just bear with me, tip percent is the percent of tip that user want to pay. So this is a different kind of single line. Also, you can have multi-line comments by adding, for example, something look like that. The total payable amount will be calculated by. So now we can go to the next line and add another comment by adding the tip on tip with the bill amount. So this is an example of multi-line comment. So at the beginning of each line we use the hash, or we can have the same things. Instead of the hashes, you can just put the, for example, triple single quote, so it will convert that one to a, and always I try to keep them as it is. So I try to keep them separately, for example, the beginning and the ending of the multi-line comment, and then we can put the comment right here. So this is a very simple example. Also, we can, for example, put all of those calculations in a function. I want to show you a little bit complicated, but don't worry, I will explain what is a function and how to create a function. But I want to put all of these code in one place, or let me to completely convert the whole code to the comment by pressing the control and backslash, or control Z, control and backslash, and it will convert the whole code to the comment. Now, for example, if you have something, I want to show you the indentation. So indentation. So for example, if we have if you want to check, in the same example, let me to back that one to the normal. So for example, if you want to check the tip percent and keep it, for example, between for example less than 10%, then you can check something here. So I'm not going to use the function. I will use a if statement. If tip percent is greater than 10% or 10, then we can ask again the user to enter another value. So we can say print a message and tell the user the tip percent is higher than 10%. Please enter the tip percent lower than 10. So in fact, we try to check the input of the user, and if it is greater than 10, we will again ask them to enter another value. And if you look at that, so in the other programming languages, we try to use, for example, in the Java, I will add that one just to show you. We always try to, for example, put a bracket here, opening bracket or closing bracket, curly bracket, and this is a block of code. But in Python, we are not going to use any of those brackets, but the indentation will tell the interpreter these two lines of code will be executed, need to be executed if this condition is true. So if we save that one, and if we run the code again, let's say, for example, we spend £50 and we want to pay 15%. And as you can see, it will show the message the tip percent is higher than 10%, and it will ask us to enter a lower percent. So in fact, these two lines of code together, they have the same indentation, and they run because this condition is true. So for example, if we say we want to pay 5%, it will show us the price, the total price. But you need to be careful because, for example, if I try to do something look like that, and if these two line of code, if they have a different indentation, definitely the Python try to show you an error. So you need to be careful about that. This is one of the main source of problem with Python programming, and with for those people who they are coming from the other programming languages.